On today's show, was Cavs center Jarrett Allen given a contract extension just so he could be traded later? Plus, is Luke Travers going to be joining the Cavs? That's all straight ahead on today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. You can find this show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Be sure to drop us a 5-star review. Leave some nice comments too. Also, check us out on YouTube. If you're not watching us on YouTube, search Locked On Cavs, find us, watch this video. If you are watching this video, hit that thumbs up button for me. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the notification bell so you are alerted anytime the latest Locked On Cavs content does go live. Also, going to be doing a mailbag episode tomorrow. If you've got questions, drop them in the YouTube comments or tweet at me at @RealDCunningham. Of course, this show is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show also brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs are over, but the Olympics still going on. It's winding down, but still going on. The sports might not be going on quite as much as we want them to, but FanDuel's got something for everybody. That's right. They're hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hi again, everybody. I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I'm going to spend some time today talking about Jarrett Allen. We all know that he was given a contract extension by the Cleveland Cavaliers. News broke about a week ago at this point that he was going to be signing a deal with the Cavs. And one of the things that I immediately mentioned when that news broke was the timing of Allen signing that contract was important because, and I think we saw this week with, specifically in Utah with Lauri Markkanen. When you sign a deal like the one Jarrett Allen signed, and he signed a deal that is a 3-year contract extension that stacks on top of the 2 years he's got left on his original deal that he signed a few years back with the Cavs. So to recap it, Jarrett Allen has this year and next year at $20 million a year. Then he jumps up 2 years from now. He'll be making $28 million a year that year. Then that'll go up to 30 and then 32 in the 5th and final year that he currently has under his deal. So when you sign a contract like that, you cannot be traded for 6 months. So let's all pull out our calendars here. And what is 6 months from right now? Well, that would be the month of February. What happens in February? A lot of stuff. The All-Star break, but primarily the NBA trade deadline. So because Jarrett Allen agreed to this contract, I think it might have been July 31st that he agreed to the deal. He signed that deal on August 2nd, or at least that's when the Cavs made it official. They sent out the press release. They did all that stuff. So that's when I take it as the day it was signed. Typically, I don't think teams wait once the deal is signed to make it official in terms of sending that stuff out. So what is 6 months from August 2nd? That would be February 2nd. That is the day Jarrett Allen becomes eligible to be traded by the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, are there teams that would be interested? Like if the Cavs right now, and they can't, but if the Cavs right now, and I think I was listening to the Hoop Collective with Brian Windhurst, and he made a really good point here as far as what's a good contract, what's a bad contract. Right now, if the Cavs wanted to trade Jarrett Allen, they could. Not now legally they can't, like it's against the CBA, they do have to wait that 6 months, but teams would take on Allen with the current contract he has. So that is something that does make it a good contract, and that is just worth noting here. But he cannot be dealt now until February 2nd. February 2nd is 4 days before the NBA trade deadline this upcoming season. That deadline is February 6th. So what does this mean? One, this does not mean that the Cavs are going to actively be looking to trade Jarrett Allen. I think that is something that needs to be mentioned here. Jarrett Allen is part of the team's future. They would not have signed him to this deal if they could not envision him playing alongside Evan Mobley long-term, playing alongside Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, that whole group. If they didn't think that would work out, they would not have signed him to an extension. That said, this does give them, I think, an exit strategy this year. Now, if Jarrett Allen would have signed his contract extension yesterday, as we saw the Utah Jazz and Lauri Markkanen agree to a deal yesterday, that I'm not sure whether or not that has officially been signed or made official or whatever. But that deal, in essence, makes it so Lauri Markkanen cannot be traded until next offseason because he signed his deal February 7th or agreed upon it, whatever. Again, I don't know if it's official. But the point is it's past August 6th. So because that's past August 6th, well, when's that 6-month date? February 7th. That's past the trade deadline. Cannot be dealt now until next offseason at the earliest if he gets traded at all. Jarrett Allen does not have that because of when he signed his deal. So I do think that this gives the Cavs, it does a couple of things. One, Jarrett Allen is under a contract that is very good for the team and I believe would be very good if another team is interested in him in the future in terms of trading for him. I think this is a contract that is very tradable, that as the cap continues to go up, Jarrett Allen is not going to be viewed as a very expensive player. Projections show that the first year his extension kicks in, so that would be a couple seasons from now, he'll be making roughly 16% of the salary cap. So he is well below even a rookie scale max player. Well below that number. That's one thing that is absolutely worth bringing up here, that he is not a max player. Not on a max contract. He's on a very, very good contract that I think a lot of teams around the league would be interested in trading for. So that is something to keep in mind here. That is one reason why this was a fantastic idea. Two, this gives Kenny Atkinson the opportunity here to really prove that he can make this team better with the same parts than they were last year. This does that because there's not going to be uncertainty for a while as far as who's around. There's not going to be talking, you can remember back to last year, and obviously this didn't happen, but there was a lot of chatter. There was a game that the Cavs flirted with losing in Detroit, and there was a lot of thought that if the Cavs would have lost that game, it was coming off of, I believe, a loss to the Trailblazers. That was just a really ugly, bad loss. That JB Bickerstaff would be out the window, and things were very tense, clearly. That's not going to be the case with the roster this year. These guys know that, at least the core four, they're not going. Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley know they're not going anywhere. Now, Jarrett Allen knows he's not going anywhere until at least February 2nd. So I do think that is something that matters, and I think that's something that can be a good thing in this locker room that you need to remember. It gives Kenny Atkinson the opportunity to say, hey, I wanted Jarrett Allen here. And he talked about how he thinks that this team can do a lot of different things with Jarrett Allen. And he's got, I believe, a ton of belief in Allen, particularly considering that those two worked together in Brooklyn. And Jarrett Allen got his NBA start with Kenny Atkinson as his first head coach. So I do think that is something that does matter significantly. I think that is a really big deal. I think Jarrett Allen believes in Kenny Atkinson, and I think Kenny Atkinson does believe in Jarrett Allen. So I think that's something you do have to keep in mind here as we talk about this contract extension. But, and of course there's a but, if it does not work out, one, this contract, as I have mentioned, makes Jarrett Allen, I believe, tradable in the future. Whether it's this February, whether it's next summer, whether it's 2 summers from now. I think Jarrett Allen is going to be somebody that has a lot of interest surrounding him. Teams are going to want Jarrett Allen because he's a very good player on a very good contract. The other thing that it does is, let's say this doesn't work out the way most of us expect it to. And I think it is fair to have some questions and to have some doubts about it. But let's say that the Cavs are not what we all expect the Cavs to be, where I've gone on record, I think they're, the number 3 or number 4 team in the Eastern Conference. Let's say they're not that they slide back a little bit. This gives them the opportunity this season to, if they have to pivot, they can pivot. They have a window where they can trade Jarrett Allen should they need to trade Jarrett Allen, should they need to move on from him because they need to reallocate some of those assets into other parts of the team. And I don't know what's going to be available in February. There's no way for me to know right now what's going to be available in February. But all I can say is, I've mentioned how many teams would or could potentially have interest in Jarrett Allen next summer. I have no reason to believe those teams wouldn't be interested in Jarrett Allen this upcoming February. So Jarrett Allen signing that contract when he did, that matters. The timing of that matters. And I don't know that he could have. Maybe this deal was only on the table if it came with the thought of, hey, you've got to sign this before August 6th. You have to sign this now so that you can be trade eligible again at some point this season. Maybe that was part of it? I don't know. I wouldn't be stunned, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it was the other way, where if that was not even a thought. But it is just worth mentioning that when the deal was signed, gives the Cavs a bit of added flexibility going into this season. That flexibility is only 4 days long, but that flexibility does exist. Again, I don't expect it to come to that. I don't. I've got high hopes for this team. I think this team's going to be good. And I just think that this is something that as you think about what the rest of the league looks like, as you think about Jarrett Allen's contract in the future, and as you think about this season, it's something worth thinking about that the Cavs, by doing this deal, not just the deal, but the timing of the deal when they did it, it gives them a bit of added flexibility that is just worth thinking about. It's just worth thinking about. One guy that could be part of the future for the Cavs, maybe as soon as this year, Luke Travers. There was some news on him this week. We're going to talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. You know, you love sports if you're watching this or listening to this. Of course you love sports. You probably love the NBA, and you're probably bummed out because, you know, there's not NBA going on right now. The Olympics are winding down. Sure, Team USA is around, or maybe some other sports that you could be interested in. But just because all that stuff, it's not the peak season for sports right now, doesn't mean that you cannot still get the most out of your experience. And you can do that by FanDuel. All you have to do, open up the FanDuel app anytime you're in the mood to dream up some bets. And of course, this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody, every day, all summer long. Now, things, of course, have not gone great over the last week or so for my Cleveland Guardians. I think they're on a 5-game losing streak. They lost both games of a doubleheader, got swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks. Big series this weekend in Minnesota against the Twins. Something to certainly keep an eye on. But if you're like me, if you're going to have undying faith in them to finally win the American League, to finally win the World Series, I shouldn't say finally win the American League. They've done that a number of times. But head on over to FanDuel. And it's interesting, their odds for the World Series are slipping. They're down to plus 1,900. I think that's great value. Maybe you think, oh, there's no chance. But anything can happen in October. If the Guardians pitching, they've got a couple guys coming back from injuries. Alex Cobb, Matthew Boyd. If those guys can give a boost to that rotation, could boost the Guardians' chance. So maybe plus 1,900 is a place you want to be if you're interested in the Cleveland Guardians winning the World Series. So head on over to FanDuel and start making the most out of your summer. Go to FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So some news came out earlier this week, and it is a guy that a lot of Cavs fans have had their eye on for some time, and that is Luke Travers. He was a 2022 second-round pick by the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's been a draft and stash guy. Well, what does that mean? Draft and stash means that you select a player without the intention of bringing him over to the NBA right away. The Cavs did that with Luke. He was drafted, and they were content with allowing him to play in Australia, in the NBL, for a couple of years. And that's what he's done. He's been playing, I believe, for Melbourne United over the last couple of seasons. And news came out this week that Melbourne United is allowing Luke out of his contract, and they specified in the tweet that they put out. I don't know if it's termed as a buyout, if it's a release, or what it is, but they specified, they tweeted out, Melbourne United did, "Thank you and good luck, Luke Travers. We have granted Luke Travers a release from his contract to pursue NBA opportunities. We would like to thank Luke for his contributions to the club and the city during his time with us." So there's a lot to read into there, but the thing that sticks out to everybody and jumped out to me immediately was, "We have granted Luke Travers a release from his contract to pursue NBA opportunities." Well, the Cavs have Luke's rights. He's played in Summer League for the Cavs last 3 years, I guess it is. But he's not playing the NBA. This is not a situation where Luke can just go out and say, "Hey, I'm pursuing NBA opportunities. Anybody that wants to sign me can sign me." That's not how this works. The Cavs have the rights to Luke Travers. So if he's going to be signing a contract in the NBA, whether it's a two-way deal, whether it's a standard contract, whatever it is, the Cavaliers have the right to sign him. Other teams can't swoop in. It's not as if he's a free agent. He was a drafted player with draft rights to the Cavs. So that is thing number one that you need to know. Thing number two that you need to know, that if you've been listening to this, watching this show, or even just following the Cavaliers, maybe today is your first time stumbling upon Locked On Cavs, and if that is true, make sure you're subscribed. You know that Luke Travers had mentioned, he mentioned specifically when he had media availability with the Cleveland media here prior to Summer League, that he doesn't want to end up on the list of guys that was drafted in the second round, the quote-unquote draft and stash guys, as I mentioned, and then never made his way over to the NBA. Was just someone that was drafted, is a footnote in NBA history, and never actually plays in the league that he's dreamed of playing for what I would presume is his entire life. Certainly his entire basketball life. Everyone's goal is to get to the NBA. So I do think that something could be in the cards here, that Luke's going to be on a two-way with the Cavs. That would be my prediction right now, because I don't think he gets out of this contract with Melbourne United unless he's got a pretty strong, if he and his agency and such have a pretty strong inkling that they're going to be able to get a two-way deal, or if not more, with the Cavs. So it is worth looking at the way the Cavs roster is constructed right now. They've got 12 guys under standard NBA contracts, which is not enough. They need that number to, at a certain point, be up to 14. They can kind of play jump rope with the roster limit, so they can go with 13 guys on the full-time contracts for 2 weeks at a time, and then they have to have 14 guys in the contracts, and that'll come into play more so once 10-day contracts are allowed starting in January. So they do have space for him on the actual roster, but they also have 3 two-way spots that are available right now. They don't have a player that is signed on a two-way. Luke Travers could very well fill one of those slots. I think that might actually be the most likely scenario here, is that he comes over, he's in Cleveland with the Cavs, with the Charge, playing sometimes in the NBA, playing sometimes in the G League, and just kind of seeing how he adapts to basketball in the States, because I do think it's different, and I think it's also different than Summer League. I've talked on this show about how I was, a little bit disappointed with how Luke looked in the Las Vegas Summer League. I don't know if he just had a bad week. That happens. The second game, I believe that was the game against the Milwaukee Bucks. It was the first one he played in. If you remember, he missed the first game with I believe it was termed hamstring tightness. That game against the Milwaukee Bucks, I thought Luke looked really good. I thought he looked aggressive. I thought he was very strong in going to the basket. I thought he did a lot of good things. And I thought it to me, in watching that game, the biggest difference was, okay, he looks like a grown-up basketball player playing in this game. And that matters in Summer League, because you don't always find that. You don't always find a ton of structure, a ton of guys playing the right way. And I thought he stood out early because he did that. And then flash forward the next few games, I wasn't super impressed with him. I don't know if the hamstring was acting up on him, if he just didn't feel like he was comfortable in playing at the level he needed to be playing at because of that. I don't have that information privy to me. I'm not going to be super critical of him, but I thought my experience watching him in Vegas would be one that I was watching somebody that is ready to take grasp of an NBA roster spot, and that wasn't what happened. That said, that doesn't mean it's not in the cards for him. It doesn't mean certainly that it's not in the cards for him this year, because I do think that with this news, he's not getting out of this contract for nothing. I think that there has to be something lined up. My guess is it's probably a two-way spot. And then I will be very interested to see how he adapts to basketball in the States. What does he look like playing on the Cleveland Charge? What's that skill level of competition like compared to being in the NBL, where, he obviously wasn't a star in the NBL, and I don't expect him to be a star in Cleveland, whether it's with the Cavs or the Charge. But I do think at a certain point, an NBA role player can be made out of Luke Travers. I think that is a very real possibility. I think it's something worth thinking about as we go and as we continue to watch how this situation unfolds. I think that it is 100% something that is worth thinking about. It's something that you should be cognizant of, because they've got the space for it. And coming up next, I want to talk about how the rest of the roster is going to be constructed. I mentioned the Cavs only right now have 12 guys under contract. They need more than that. They have nobody on any two-way. So there is still work to be done. I know it's early. We're starting to get to, mid-August right now. There's still work to be done on this roster. So we're going to talk about the two-way spots, going to talk about the back end of the roster, going to do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed with maybe kids' activities, big work projects and so much more, it's really easy at times to let your priorities slip. I am certainly guilty of this as anyone else. So often I find myself so busy that I can't find time for myself. I actually think I got sick earlier this week. That's why I haven't had episodes in a couple of days. I've been sick because I just get so wrapped up that I don't leave time for myself. And that's not a good thing, because even when we know what makes us happy, we don't always make time for it. And when you feel like you don't even have time for yourself, that's kind of the time when it makes therapy all the more important. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online. It is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. I think those are all three very important things, because it can be very difficult to pick up where you're at and I have to go across town because I have to go. I have to go to an appointment across town. That can be a very difficult thing. BetterHelp makes it so much easier than that. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and you can get matched with a licensed therapist. And this is, I think, a very important thing, because it can be difficult to find the right match, but you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. If you don't think that the therapist you've been matched with is right for you, you can find a different one for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for 10% off your first month. Again, visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. So in talking about Luke Travers, and I think that he's probably going to be somebody that's going to wrap up one of those two-way spots. I want to talk about the rest of the two-way spots and the end of the bench, but I also want to say thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Again, today's show coming a little bit later than normal just because, like I said, I've been sick. I haven't been able to record for the past couple of days, but I'm also going to be doing a mailbag episode tomorrow. So drop comments, whatever questions you have about the Cavs, what you think of this team's offseason. Drop those in the YouTube comments, or again, you can tweet me at RealDCunningham. We'll get a bunch of those hammered out, and we will have some fun content coming your way tomorrow. But I expect Luke Travers to be one of those two-way spots. Amani Bates is someone who has not signed a deal yet, but he was on a two-way with the Cavs last year, and the Cavs gave him like the qualifying two-way offer. That means he's in a similar spot to Luke Travers, where he's not signed by anybody, but the Cavs have the rights to him. He's not a free agent to where he can go out and just say, hey, another team, give me a contract. He's essentially tied to the Cavs for another season. I would expect him to be back on a two-way spot. My guess is that Amani would like to be on a standard NBA contract, but I think that the Cavs would like for him to be on a two-way spot again this year. I think he's probably another year away from being an NBA contributor, but I do think that even though he can be inconsistent, I do think that there is reason to believe that he can still fill a role in the NBA. I don't think he's going to be a star. I don't think he's going to be an all-star, but I think he can be somebody that plays in the NBA consistently. And I think he's somebody that can help a team win. Maybe it's in a sixth-man role. Maybe it's, replacing Karis LeVert a year from now. I don't know what that is, but I do think that is there. So I expect him back on a two-way again. Maybe Pete Nance comes back on a two-way for that third slot. I don't know. I thought his summer was up and down. There were days he made shots and looked good. Days he didn't make shots, didn't look great. That's just kind of, that's basketball. It's a make or miss league, as everybody likes to say. And then as for the end of the bench for the Cavs, obviously we're still awaiting the Isaac Okoro situation to figure itself out in some respects, where, he's still just kind of waiting around in restricted free agency wilderness, and there's really not cap space left out there. I don't know what team would be interested in a sign and trade. At this point, I would expect him back on the Cavs on a team-friendly contract, or he could play on that qualifying offer. Could come back on a one-year deal and hit unrestricted free agency next year and see what he likes. But I don't think next summer is going to be a big spending summer either, especially now that the Utah Jazz renegotiated and extended Lauri Markkanen. Just the cap space teams are not plentiful next summer. So that is something to keep in mind. And then we know the Cavs also do need a backup big. Damian Jones has signed in China. I don't know what direction the Cavs are going to go there. I think that is something that will be just interesting to watch. So we will definitely keep an eye on that here at Locked On Cavs. But again, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, anywhere else. Now for your second listen today, go check out Locked On NBA. They've got a ton of great stuff as far as the Olympics go. Obviously, so many stars are playing for Team USA right now. That's still something to watch. They have a semifinal game coming up later today that is just, worth checking out. Locked On NBA will have you covered there. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. Click the notification bell as well. And I will talk to you tomorrow with a mailbag edition of Locked On Cavs.